to, or I should start?
You can go ahead and start.
Okay. All right, it is 6:30 p.m. I will call the meeting to order. First item is citizens' communication.
Haven't been any.
Don't see any. Yep. All right, item 3A is approval of the minutes from the October 28th, 2024 meeting.
There's just a time edit. It was called to order at 7:30. I'm assuming that was 6:30. Not 7:30.
Oh, I didn't catch that. What are the minutes? I don't have them. Is that right? Did we call the meeting at 6:30? Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other issues with the minutes? Or can I get a motion to approve them as amended for the time correction?
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. All in favor? All of us? Us, okay. Approved as amended, so correcting the start time to 6:30 p.m.
Yes.
from 7:30. Good eye, I did not catch that.
I didn't either.
I looked at that. All right, item 4A is discussion of the joint meeting with City Council and directives for 2025. And that says me.
Yes.
So Corey and I attended the meeting with the council.
Yes.
And our takeaway from that meeting was to come back and look at recommendations, proposals for what we might want to take on, right, in 2025. And I believe Corey has put together quite an extensive list
Yeah.
of possibilities, which we can discuss now.
Yeah, I think like it's kind of twofold. It's like how do we get proposals submitted and formally in front of council, and then let's see, kind of how to promote the listening tours in the next session and what the subject should be. I think a little feedback from some of the council members was they wanted more participation in the community. So how do we use our own networks, I guess, or use our own resources to get the word out? I know communications does that already, but is there something that we could do from our private media accounts and things like that to be more of an advocate? So yeah, something to that extent.
Yeah, I guess on that front, like for 2024, like we had the stated goal of like having these series of sessions all year long. And I guess the question is for ongoing for 2025, is it the same volume, or do we target like a lesser version of the listening tour? Because I don't know, for me, it feels like a lot to repeat like that many sessions every year.
Yeah.
So
Well,
what are your thoughts?
I think it could be more around a specific topic, like if we were to take one of the pillars or something to that extent and have some sort of listening to that, to those goals, and we can make directed recommendations based off that. A little bit more detailed questions, I guess. Right now, I think it was very overview. We kind of got the pulse of the community, but I don't think that we got like. We did get a lot of suggestions and a lot of like feedback, but I think we could do better in terms of more folks participating in the future. So
Yeah, I think one of the takeaways I recall was that attendance was better when there was like a community organization that already had its,
had its
clientele or
And I think like we really went after the food bank, and we got the food bank done, and I think that was really important, and I think we should still grow that relationship with Tina at the food bank, but we also have many church groups and stuff like that, so to continue building relationships with some of the religious institutions, but maybe even a broader range of religious institutions besides just the Christian churches.
right, within the community.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess in terms of like the targeted sessions then, like, are you envisioning how many a year?
I think that could be a discussion that we have, like depending on our pillars. Like I think we need to get down to those individual pillars and kind of dissect what the issues are in those areas. I think having it be more committee led too. It was a little bit city led at this point, and I would have liked to hand in like writing the actual report. So, like how do we get our proposals on the table and actually our proposals to city council? It seemed a lot like it was city led, not really commission led at that point. So
Yeah.
I would like to make sure that we're pushing things forward
Right, from the committee?
from our perspectives.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I guess, is this like a separate work session we need to have? Or,
I think we could today this is discuss only, so there's no action being taken. But I think like maybe actionable next steps are like either picking a pillar or picking maybe how to continue facilitating the listening tours in the future, like and take action on that as a committee, and kind of figure out that strategy.
I would just say that that's probably a discussion that you're going to want to have with the new members that are coming on also, because
Yep.
there are quite a few. new people.
That's good, yeah, and
Hi, Clarissa.
yeah, I think we want to bring that back to,
Yeah.
because it's only a discussion today just to bring it to the table, but I think like it's something that we as a committee could, identify as what our logical next steps are, and like who takes the onerous of developing the report and who takes the onerous, and everyone in the committee has a possibility to present proposals to the committee and somehow actually action upon those would be nice.
so, how many new people are we expecting? I guess
I
I'm
don't
not
know,
aware.
it'll depend on,
It's 2 to 3.
Yeah.
Expect 2 to 3 new people.
Okay, in January or, okay. All right, well,
and
yeah,
I would just suggest also that to look at the city charter and make sure that you're working within that.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the city charter, and I'm a little confused as to, it seems kind of hard to get ideas to the table and approved or even discussed in the committee. So I would like to understand like what our role is. It kind of seemed a little, like I said, city-led last time, and I think it kind of came from the perspective of you guys over here, but I think we need to have more, since we are the appointed members, having more targeted discussions around what actions that we actually suggest to city council. So I think that's something that we could talk about in the future. And then also maybe increasing participation in the city listening tours for the commission. I know that we only had like 2 people doing the listening tours this time. I would like to have a way to ensure that everyone is participating, just to make sure that we're getting as broad of a voice as we can from the community.
yeah, no, I mean, I think that was the original intent, right? That it wasn't down to only a few members. And maybe part of bringing in the new folks will give us an opportunity, to secure more facilitators for that.
Yeah, and I think it's also using our networks, because I think I had a good success with developing a relationship with the food bank. So if there was we encourage more of that, like in city infrastructure or city organizations that may be out there that maybe we haven't touched yet, it'd be really good to get their voice heard too as well.
Yeah. I guess one thing I was thinking about, because I felt like there was some momentum in terms of an actionable next step recommendation to come out of the committee, was that sort of resource list.
Oh yeah, this guy.
Yeah,
book.
yeah.
Yeah, the resource book, I actually gave it to this assistant city, or whoever's in the office in the city, and I think it's been distributed a little bit broader, but it could actually be a little starting point for us to actually find these organizations, and we have a documented record of them.
Gotcha. So somebody at the city already
Yeah, well, the
received
city-
this?
Provided to the city secretary, and we're distributing it to our city departments
Yeah.
so they have it as well.
Okay. Is there any ongoing responsibility from the commission, or like how's that gonna be maintained going forward? I think that was sort of the question in my mind, like handing it off like a one-time exercise from the committee is one thing,
Yeah.
but like keeping it up.
I kind of saw it as like good to know, like
Good what?
It's good to know, like for the city to know these things, but actionably, like how we facilitate that, I think it should be relying on us contacting some of those folks and actually developing relationships. But and then city staff could also push that into the community and push that out. I don't think that would be our responsibility necessarily. But
Are those resources that the other citizens of Pflugerville can also utilize?
yes, so we got food resources, clothing, housing, medical, this whole book
Got it.
full of phone numbers.
Okay. How can we make that accessible to the citizens? Any ideas besides?
Well, we have a copy next to our community resource binder. So anybody can come into the library and use it.
Yeah, and I think it's hard to digitize because you'd have to confirm with each of those individual groups if they exist or they don't exist, or it may be hard to take a paper form of this that was written a year ago. But that would be a little hurdle that I would see. But I would love to have this democratized in the community.
I think that's definitely something that we can at least put on a back burner as a potential project, because that is a sustainable project. If we are going to look forward in the future of having, there's a couple of websites that are similar to that. I'll see if I can find some examples to share. But there are some, like if you're looking for specific resources, it narrows down those specific, like a directory almost.
Yeah.
If we're gonna provide those things, one, the citizens need to know that such a thing exists, so we need to communicate that out. And then also, to your point, maintaining it, because if we're going to have a list of resources that are helpful, if we have it flooded with a bunch of, well, we'll just say it, noise. If we don't know if they exist, if they're still active, they're still utilizing, then that's not necessarily helpful for someone who's looking for help.
Right.
So that's something to consider for the future. But I like that.
Yeah, I found this from a community member. Just the community put this together, and they gave it to me, and that's how I found that there was even a resource guide floating
Yeah.
around there. So yeah, I think democratizing that would be great, in any way we can, and also verifying that some of these organizations are still in power today. So.
So can the food pantries and different establishments like that have a copy of this?
I'm sorry, say it
Like
again?
the food pantries in different places throughout the city?
I don't see why
Can-
not.
Yeah.
Get a copy of that and distribute it out, like if they
Or just
made a
have
copy
it-
of this and gave it to like the food pantry and.
Yeah, I don't really see issue with that. I think too, one, from our perspective is the library does pass out a lot of that information. We need to make sure
It's-
we're not duplicating
Yeah.
it, and things like that on our
Yeah.
list. And then maybe, to your point, communicating it better online or otherwise, so that it's, and then it's that link to the food pantry or otherwise. And so, because a lot of those resources, I know Jennifer and her team make available here at the library, and so we just need to see what's missing from that list that you found in that resource guide and ensure that that's communicated out correctly and to those who need to find those resources.
Yeah, and I think there's already things in place today that's helping the community, and could just be like fill in the gaps.
Yeah, yeah.
Where are the gaps that might be in here? like I said, it was printed in September 21st, 2023, so maybe, not all 100%. So that's the horrors of
We
paper.
actually have a copy of his. Staff find it super helpful also. We do have our smaller ones that we hand out, but being able as a staff person to go in there and say, okay, like, for example, I was looking for emergency shelter because we're coming into winter.
Right.
I was calling numbers, and I found one.
Yeah.
Same one I had last year.
One more than you had. So,
So,
yeah, I like that idea.
Okay. Well,
Madam Chair, if you don't mind if I just could add
mhm.
to the conversation maybe a little bit. I just want to make sure that it's, when that report came out, it wasn't staff's perspective on the listening sessions. It was a summary of the minutes of that, and so.
Yeah, and the
wanna make
staff
sure it
also
wasn't
took
just-
the minutes. The staff also took the minutes.
Correct. But they were also recorded and given to the commission, so make sure.
They weren't given to the commission. We did not get the recordings. And when
But you had the minutes and you had
No.
the summaries?
no,
All the notes on there, okay. So if you recall, I guess what I'm saying is if you recall something different from attending those, that's what's important. If there was something that we missed, it wasn't our initiative to say, these are the things we should do, these are things we heard. If you heard it differently, definitely why we wanted to review that with all of you. And so that wasn't that was our summary of those meetings. And so maybe this year, is that something you'd like to take on, is to take on
Yeah.
those minutes and things like that? That was really our goal there, and having to help facilitate.
I would very much like that. Like I think pulling back from the city because we can't have the city talking to the city about how to fix the city. So we need our input, and I think we need to organize a little bit better. Like maybe have a retrospective after each listening tour. Like have the minutes, have the recordings. We listen to those things. We take notes. We bring in documentation. And we develop a report. I mean, that's not too onerous. I mean, I'm happy to do it.
I think that's something you should discuss with the full commission when it comes on, because even in challenging, which you all mentioned, is even setting up some of those was very hard, and so.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't do as much as we were supposed to do in terms of
Right.
sessions.
So we're happy to contribute or step away in those. We want to make sure it's successful for you all.
Mhm.
And so if there were things in that report, we would have loved to hear what those changes would have been from what you all heard during those times
Yeah.
as well.
I don't think there's many changes. I mean, it was a great report, and I think it was a good first start. But just making sure that, like, when I have a list of proposals, like, how do I bring that list of proposals to you guys and actually formally talk about something? Just more of a process there would be nice.
Yeah. Well, and the recommendations, I assume, are informed by what you heard in the sessions that you attended.
Yes.
Right, like-
My proposals.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which I think is what I think that at the end of the day, that was what city council, I think, was trying to get at, was that we weren't necessarily formulating recommendations in a vacuum without it coming from
Yes,
the
it was all
the
coming from the
community.
listening sessions.
Yes.
Of course, it was based on all the research notes, and it was only based on the data that I have, and I didn't have the recordings or the notes from the meetings, but I did have the full report. I was able to analyze the full report and come up with the proposals from that. So it is all based on
Community
the
input.
community input.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think are we a little nervous about giving input, or should we be?
I don't think so, because we haven't even given formal recommendations,
I've
right?
been trying.
What's that?
I've been trying.
Like, like what? I guess what feels stuck?
Warming shelters, cooling shelters. I wanted to bring that to council. I heard that in the food bank. There was also transportation needs, housing needs. There was also need for more space for the organizations that are actually facilitating for the community, but I don't feel like any of that actually got surfaced in a way that was formal to these meetings.
So I guess to make that concrete for the city council, it's, what does that look like? Like, we draft an actual ask for them to adopt, approve?
No, I think it's just a recommendation that we pull up, just like the report.
Yeah,
And they can act on it as they want to. They're elected, so they
Yeah.
have the say, really, if they act or not.
right.
And they wanted that at the end of the year.
Right, so typically that's when you see it. So for this year, you finished listening sessions, which just wrapped up, right? You just had that meeting with council last month, and they said, continue those, work on what you heard. And so, we're starting to digest that as well. There's some things in there that city departments already cover, but maybe we haven't done a good job about communicating that out to the public, but those are things that we already do. So those are things we know we need to work on, that we provide the commission that says, hey, here's the list of things that we distill from the report. You can do that as well and say, this department is responsible for this action. These are how we would recommend be improved, whether it's communication or otherwise. If there are things from those lists, maybe initiatives that the Equity Commission takes on, that's then what goes forward to City Council. There's a lot of things in there. I think we had Joe, our emergency management director, come and talk about like warming shelters, things like that. But we want to
And
make
thank you for
sure.
asking that question, by the way, to the emergency manager. I was actually absent that meeting, but you had asked my questions for me, so thank you.
Okay. So it's also making sure that y'all are aware of the things that the city departments do in those ways. And so it's taking those things that we heard from these last listening sessions, making sure they're getting where they need to go into a report that, and recommendations to city council for things that the city doesn't already cover, making sure you'll know what those are, and then moving forward with maybe those focused listening sessions throughout 2025, which is what
Yeah.
I believe I heard and y'all heard as well, to
Yeah.
continue that.
Mhm.
Looking, guiding it through a pillar is a great idea. I think your volunteers in it is a lot to ask a whole commission. So
Yes.
we're happy to be here to help support in whatever way we can. And know that's truly our goal when we're attending these meetings.
Got it.
Yeah, I think it's like two channels almost. It's kind of like there would be city recommendations and there would be recommendations that come straight from the members of the council. So you could have both and have those both submitted.
So I have a question. In terms of onboarding, so when we have new members, do we have an onboarding of like getting them familiar of, I'm speaking this also from my experience because I just got here, one of the newest ones, right? So do we have things to kind of show them around of like, these are our bylaws, these are like how you
Yeah.
submit information, communicate, those type of things?
Yeah, there's the charter and the pillars that the first Equity Commission drafted. Did I not send those to you?
No.
Okay, I will send those to you, I'm sorry.
And
Well, I think probably typically because new members come on in January, which is probably what it
Yeah.
is, so apologies for that. But the new group certainly will be Jennifer.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we need to establish a clear pathway to translate listening tour responses into actionable proposals from the commission. Like, we don't have that. We go to the listening tours and I don't know what's going on after that.
I'm just happy the listening tours happened this year.
Me too.
So like it,
And I
might
didn't
not
feel
seem
like
like a
we-
big step, right, yeah, it didn't seem like a big step, but that's something that we weren't able to do in the year prior, so just the fact that we did that step this year just makes me happy. Just wanna put that on the table, but I know we are supposed to, right, come up with actionable items from this, that is the goal.
Yeah.
Is
I
that
mean,
the
we
goal
had the
according
tour.
to charter?
It is to make recommendations for the city, right?
Yeah, but do we only have to lean on the input from these listening tours?
I don't think
Because-
only,
I
but I
think-
think we have a stronger case if we have.
I think we do have to rely on listening tours from the city charter, right? That's what I've been told, at
Well,
least.
I don't think the charter says listening tours specifically.
No,
It says from the
It's
community.
in the ordinance related to the Equity Commission that talks about the responsibility of the commission is to act on what council has directed the commission to do, which was listening tours and provide recommendations based on them. And so that was that actionable step. And I think truly, it's the third year to finish the Equity Commission, the first time been able to achieve that, which is really remarkable. And so I think that is a big step. And then being able to distill down from those listening tours, like those actionable items. I think we just need to remember that that did just wrap up last month.
I think my concern there is if that's the case, then for the listening tours, we need to be very prescriptive in the questions that we are asking, and we need to be based on goals that we're trying to achieve already. Because what my fear is if we're only leaning on the listening tours, that's wholly dependent on the data that we're getting from the citizens. And if we're not asking the right questions, we're not gonna get the right direction in order for us to make actionable progress. Like the questions that we asked, it was a really good first pass, but there's a lot of opportunity there to make a lot more focused questions to get the input we need to validate the actions that we're going. Because if we don't, then what we're going to get is like this huge vacuous amount of content that just feels like we're throwing stuff at the problem. And folks who are coming in, they're going to give their input, but they're also going to be expecting a lot more based on that input. So if we're not directing them in finding ways like, what's accessible to you? What is not accessible to you? Like, what is communication? Is communication about knowing what kind of programs exist between the different public institutions like the library and the city council and all that? Like, how can we fill that gap, right? What things are working well for you? What do you want to keep? You know, what do we want to make sure that when we hear in city council that they're going to put something on the chopping block, we need to be aware of what that looks like, right? So if that's the directive, and thank you for clarifying that for me, if we're only, that means that we're being reactive, not proactive. So if we're going to do that, then we need to really spend a lot of time on those questions that we're asking in those listening tours to give us the meat of what we really want. Otherwise, we're just going to be throwing stuff.
Yeah, I think, I mean, from what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that feels consistent with the discussion we had about the next evolution of any listening session being targeted maybe on a pillar, right? So getting more into the funnel of a specific theme or topic than this first iteration this year, which was very general,
It's proof of concept.
right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
proof of concept. So I think it's all valid,
Yeah.
and I also feel that we had success in even accomplishing the first iteration, which this is my, third year on the committee? I don't even know. And we'd been talking about doing this ever since then and had never done it. So I hear you, it feels like not fast enough, right, to get to the
I
proposals,
don't
but,
necessarily think it's not fast enough. I just think that we need a formal locomotive to get us to recommendations
Mhm.
Yeah.
from the council. Like, how do I submit a proposal, or how do I submit solutions to some of the problems that I'm hearing, and then how do we discuss that as a council?
well, I guess that is a good question. I mean, what does it need to look like in terms of the end product? Because it wouldn't be Corey submitting, it would be the
Yeah.
commission.
But I think
Right.
each commission member should have their.
Oh, we
right
should have our
to-
own, absolutely,
to-
and input,
yeah.
absolutely. But I guess from, taking it from that to a recommendation to the committee, like, what does, is that a certain, is that just a resolution that we're adopting to go to the committee, or what is the end?
To the council?
To the council, sorry.
So I think we do need to kind of articulate kind of what that process looks like. Because we haven't ever gotten to a point with the Equity Commission where we had actionable items like that were a result of an activity. And so that's really wonderful to have that. And so I think we need to be able to articulate what that looks like, and we can help guide that. I think our thought was, is that once the reappointments and appointments occur, they have your full commission, so that everyone have that input. And then as a commission, as a result of the listening sessions, we recommend these 5 things. That then goes to the mayor who sets the council agenda. Do you agree with these things? Then we move forward. Otherwise, if that were to happen before December, typically also in your ordinances that at the end of the year, the commission is responsible for giving an annual report, which is, this is what we did, which is what we did last month. This is what we did, we achieved listening sessions. And you heard from the council, they were very glad to hear that. And so typically at the end of the year, would be, we completed these additional listening sessions. These were the recommendations that we had and how we would move forward. As a commission, that's within your ordinance, and that's how things would move forward to council.
Is that, I guess another way for me to ask that question or think about it is that how all the other commissions/committees of the city operate? Or is there something we could borrow from how the process works for other committees?
So every commission or board is very different. Some are like planning and zoning commission, there are state requirements they have to follow. So, but every board and commission follows their own ordinance and what's the regulatory requirements of that, which is what established the commission. And so that's kind of our guiding, our rails that we try to work within and help to guide what the council's expectations are of the commission.
And how do we enact ordinances? Like, how do we agree as a committee to
Put a process in
put a
place.
process in place? Like, how do we actually formalize a process?
Well, you wouldn't do an ordinance. Council does ordinances. You mean as far as recommendations?
Well, as far as like how we're structuring this group and how we're getting recommendations up the chain, but like, how do we formulate a process that is a clear pathway to translating these listening tour responses into actionable results?
I think that's a great item for January to talk about the listening sessions for 2025 and the actionable items from the 2024 listening sessions and what that pathway looks like.
Okay.
At that time, we'll be prepared to bring you kind of our takeaways for what departments cover so that you have that to inform what y'all would seek that we aren't already doing or that we can improve upon.
Okay. So, all right, well then in January, when we get the new folks, it'll be a new commission. We'll vote again, right, on our different roles, chair?
Yes.
Okay, that's another thing. That could change, which is great. I mean, that's what, we do that every year. So if you're interested in being part, that'll be an opportunity in January with the different positions. All right.
Could I ask what the roles and responsibilities of the chair are in accordance to this commission?
Do you know that off the top of your head?
I think the agenda.
Not word for word, but they set the agenda with me and conduct their meetings.
And then vice chair fills in when the chair.
Yeah.
Is that in the, where is that documented? Like, it would be good for everybody to
It's-
get, including the new
Yeah, it's
people.
probably gonna be in the charter.
It's in the
It's probably time to resend that
Yeah,
on to
I
everybody
think so.
again anyway, so, I will do that. With the pillars, et cetera.
That would be great, because that way everyone can give thought to
Yeah.
the report, and if there's a burning issue on the pillar that someone is particularly passionate about, to bring that, right, to the proposed priorities for next year.
I want to say that the first commission also did like a code of conduct. Not that you guys are out of control or anything, but there is a code. They did come up with a code of conduct for
Okay.
meetings and workshops.
I'm a stickler for those type of things, actually, so I'm glad to hear that they have that. Like, you can't do any kind of community work unless you have guidelines
Right.
and those type
Yeah.
of things, so.
Yeah. I will send all of that.
Yeah. But they have to be properly communicated.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, or they might as well not have them, right? All right.
I'll send that tomorrow.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Any other discussion?
I'm sorry, you're probably gonna get a lot of questions from me.
No, that's great.
So, going back to that, so I think originally I was thinking about, does the city of Pflugerville have certain metrics for their different departments that's measuring equity in those departments? So bear with me here, is there an area or is there a source where these individual departments, like the police department, the EMS, these different institutions that where I ask them, how do you know that the work you are doing is equitable and fair How are you measuring that? Does those things exist? Does anybody know? Or
Is
anyone
that a
know?
listening tour response? So I want to make sure also we're staying within the agenda item.
Okay.
Is that something you're looking for as like an outcome of the listening tour?
Yeah, it would have to be, right, because that's part of the
Yeah.
thing, so.
Yeah. So that's something, like, that's a question we know that you're looking for, so something we can dig into with our directors.
Okay.
Dr. Virginia,
Good evening.
good evening. You've been quiet. Anything you'd like to say or add?
Oh no, I'm catching up, unfortunately. So
Okay. All right. Well, it sounds like we're going to get some materials
Yes.
to refresh ourselves on all things ordinance, code of conduct, role descriptions of our different roles.
I would also like to add, like, what is the strategy for us personally? Like, how are we allowed to engage the community? I guess it goes to the code of conduct, right?
Yeah.
And like, you know,
How are we allowed to
How are-
also?
Or what should we avoid?
Collaborate,
yeah, what should we avoid?
Or restricted from.
I'll look, that sounds really familiar from the first commission, so
Yeah.
I remember.
I'm just gonna send you, you're gonna get like 40 things.
That's fine. I like 40
Okay,
days.
well, that's what we gotta read between now
Yeah.
and our next meeting. And do we have the next meeting, or is that, well, it's not on the discussion. I guess we will get a schedule or propose dates.
Yeah, it'll be the first Monday, if it's not a holiday. Second Monday, sorry. And then you guys will set a calendar with the new people.
What did you say, set calendar with the new people?
and how many new people joining?
It'll be 2 to 3. Yeah.
What's the max, 7? Or is
Yeah.
I
there?
think it is.
7 plus an alternate.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Any other items?
And did we want to have any action next meeting, like as to like deciding on the process, or do we want to open that up to the new members and?
You'll be electing officers too next
Okay.
meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, we can adjourn. Or do I need a call for someone to adjourn? No, I can
No, you
adjourn.
just adjourn.
All right, adjourn, 7:08.
I'll give you a second.